I went to my desk quietly and tried to focus, but they didn't let me. They started sending me on pointless errands, asking me to get coffee, run down to the lobby to check deliveries, pick up lunch even when it wasn't my job. I wanted to say no, but whenever I refused, they threatened me.
You're lucky you even got your job back. Next time you argue, I'll make sure you lose it. You think the manager likes you? He almost fired you. Watch yourself.
They insulted me every chance they got. They called me names, mocked my clothes, and even messed with my desk. Sometimes, I would come back from a break and find my chair missing, my papers torn or missing. They laughed when I reacted. Every day became harder. I was constantly anxious. My stomach hurt all the time. I barely slept. Every morning, I sat on my bed staring at the wall, trying to gather strength just to go in. I was so happy the day I got my job. I had been applying to different companies for months with no luck. So when the HR manager from the company called me and said I got the position as a secretary, I screamed. I didn't care that it was just a small role in a big company. It was a start, and for me, it meant everything. On my first day, I woke up early to get ready because I wanted to look my best. I arrived at the building 30 minutes early. It was tall and made of glass, and when I walked in, I felt like I was stepping into a different world. I checked in at the reception, and a woman from HR came down to take me upstairs. She smiled and told me how happy they were to have me. But when I entered the floor where I would be working, everything changed. The moment I walked in, I felt like I didn't belong. The other workers gave me strange looks. Some whispered to each other and laughed as I walked past. I smiled and greeted them, but only one of them said hi. The others looked away. I was assigned to a desk near the corner, close to the elevators. It wasn't bad, but I noticed it was far from the others. It felt like they were keeping me away on purpose. I brushed it off and thought maybe I was imagining things. Maybe they just needed time to get used to me. That first week, I worked hard. I arrived early, took short lunch breaks, and stayed after hours to finish tasks. I always made sure the documents were in order, the files were labeled right, and the meeting rooms were ready before time. I didn't want anyone to say I wasn't doing my job well, but no matter how hard I worked, it wasn't enough for them.
Serena, this isn't how we file reports here. Don't they teach basic filing where you come from?
That was Melanie, one of the senior workers. She made sure to correct me in front of others, even when I hadn't done anything wrong. One day, she moved my lunch from the fridge and left it on the counter to spoil. When I asked who did it, she just smirked and walked away. Then there was Priya. She always made me feel like I was less than her.
You know, you don't need to try so hard. Pretty faces don't always last in this company.
She called me Miss Fresh Meat in front of the others. They laughed. I didn't. I pretended it didn't bother me, but inside, I felt hurt. Every day became harder. They excluded me from lunch plans and team chats. When I asked for help or guidance, they rolled their eyes or gave me wrong information on purpose. Once, I printed a report using the format Melanie had told me to use, only to have her yell at me the next day, saying I had messed it up. I tried talking to my manager, but he just said,
"They're just playing around. Don't take things so seriously. You're new."
He didn't understand. It wasn't just playing. It felt like I was walking on nails every day. One time, they threw a surprise birthday party for one of the other girls. Everyone chipped in for cake and gifts. When it was my birthday a week later, not a single person said anything. Not even happy birthday. I spent my break in the restroom that day crying quietly. But the worst part wasn't the insults or the silence. It was the fake smiles. How they acted sweet when the boss was around, only to turn cold once he was gone. I started losing sleep. My appetite dropped. I kept telling myself to stay strong, that maybe things would change. But deep down, I knew something wasn't right. One day at work, everything got worse. I was at my desk, quietly arranging some reports when Amanda, one of the workers who always gave me trouble, walked over and stood in front of me with her arms folded.
"So little, Miss Perfect. I heard you think you're better than us because of that stupid pretty face of yours. Are you stupid?"
I looked up at her in complete confusion. I hadn't even spoken to her that day. "Huh? I don't understand what you mean."
"Of course you don't, always acting innocent. You know what? I'm tired of you, and so is everyone here."
She leaned closer and started shouting insults. She called me names, said I didn't belong in the company, and accused me of flirting with the boss to keep my job. I stayed silent. I didn't want to argue. I just wanted to finish my work and go home. But Amanda didn't stop. She kept yelling, louder and louder, until almost everyone on the floor was watching. And then, she did something I didn't expect. She reached out and grabbed my hair, pulling it hard. For a second, I was in shock. I stood up, trying to move away, but she wouldn't let go. My scalp was burning. I had no choice, so I pushed her back. "Stop it!" She stumbled a little, but caught her balance quickly and came at me again. We were in the middle of a full-blown fight. I didn't want it. I hated it, but she started it, and I was just trying to protect myself. That's when the manager walked in. He looked shocked. Papers were scattered on the floor. Amanda was screaming. I had tears in my eyes from the pain in my head. He didn't even ask questions.
Serena, my office, now.
I followed him, my heart pounding. In his office, Amanda showed up minutes later, pretending to cry. She acted like I attacked her for no reason, and to make it worse, the others backed her up. They all said I was the one who started the fight. I tried to explain what really happened, but the manager wouldn't listen.
You should have handled yourself better. This kind of behavior is not acceptable. You're suspended for 2 weeks. Go home. And Amanda, I do not want a repetition of this.
I stared at him in disbelief. Amanda was only scolded, but I got suspended? Me? I walked out of the office, picked up my bag, and left the building with my head down. I wanted to cry, scream, anything, but I held it in. I didn't want to give them the satisfaction. 2 weeks passed slowly. I didn't leave the house much. I kept thinking about what happened, trying to understand why they hated me so much. I had never done anything to any of them. When it was finally time to return to work, I hoped things would get better, but they didn't. They got worse. The moment I stepped onto the floor, I felt all the eyes on me. Some of them smirked. Some whispered and pointed. I went to my desk quietly and tried to focus, but they didn't let me. They started sending me on pointless errands, asking me to get coffee, run down to the lobby to check deliveries, pick up lunch even when it wasn't my job. I wanted to say no, but whenever I refused, they threatened me.
You're lucky you even got your job back. Next time you argue, I'll make sure you lose it. You think the manager likes you? He almost fired you. Watch yourself.
They insulted me every chance they got. They called me names, mocked my clothes, and even messed with my desk. Sometimes, I would come back from a break and find my chair missing, my papers torn or missing. They laughed when I reacted. Every day became harder. I was constantly anxious. My stomach hurt all the time. I barely slept. Every morning, I sat on my bed staring at the wall, trying to gather strength just to go in. I thought about quitting, but I didn't, because I didn't want to give them that power. I told myself I would keep going, that somehow this storm would pass. One day, something happened that I never expected. Our manager quit, just like that. No warning, no goodbye. He sent in his resignation letter and left. The whole office was in shock. Everyone whispered, wondering what would happen next. A few hours later, the big boss of the company arrived. This was the man who owned several branches across the country. He rarely visited, but now that our manager was gone, he had come to see things for himself. When I saw him step out of the elevator, I was shocked because I knew him. We'd gone to university together. Back then, we were always competing in grades, leadership, everything. He was the only person who could match my energy. We used to argue and challenge each other, but it was always respectful. I never knew he had started such a big company. He looked at me and was equally shocked.
Serena, is it really you?
I nodded. I was honestly embarrassed for him to see me like this. Just a low-level secretary in his company.
What are you doing here?
Well, working. I'm the new secretary here.
What? No way.
He stared at me for a long time. Then he turned to the others and spoke loudly.
From today, Serena is your new manager. You're to respect her and follow her leadership. She's more than qualified, and I trust her completely.
The room went silent. I stood there, frozen. I didn't expect that at all. My bullies looked like they'd seen a ghost. Amanda's mouth was hanging open. Priya looked like she might faint. Melanie turned pale. They couldn't believe it. Me? Manager? Dominic smiled at me and gave me a firm handshake before leaving the building. I watched him go, still shocked. A few minutes later, HR came to give me my new office key. I walked into the office, sat in the manager's chair, and looked around. I had made it. From the girl they bullied and insulted to the one who now had the power. Not long after, I heard a knock on my door, and just as I expected, all of them came in. Amanda, Priya, Melanie, and the others. Smiling, pretending to be friendly.
Serena, ma'am, we're so happy for you.
Yeah, we always knew you had potential. Please don't take our past behavior seriously. We were just joking around.
I laughed out loud. I couldn't help it. You insulted me, lied about me, and tried to get me fired. Now you're smiling in my face? Pathetic. They all went quiet. I stood up and pointed to the door. Get out of my office. All of you. They hesitated. Amanda tried to speak again, but I raised my hand. Outside before I call security. They all left in shame. Over the next few months, I made their lives hell. First, I had custom work t-shirts made for the three of them with "Learning from our mistakes" printed boldly on the front. I assigned them all sorts of absurd tasks, overworked them relentlessly, and the worst part? I made them take instructions from interns. Every time I came into the office, I'd hand Priya my bag and watch her carry it to my office like a personal assistant. When the three of them greeted me, I never replied. I just nodded coldly. After every meeting, I made sure they were the ones cleaning the conference room, no matter how late it was. One day, I told them we had an urgent meeting at 3 a.m. to discuss an upcoming project and meet a very important client. They all showed up at the office under the snow at 3 a.m. sharp, while I was sound asleep in bed. When I strolled into work at 8 a.m., they started complaining about how I'd been treating them. I didn't argue. I just called HR and told her to post vacancies for all three of their positions. Within a few days, I had fresh new staff. Young people who were kind and respectful. Then I did what I had waited so long to do. I called Amanda, Priya, Melanie, and the rest into the conference room. They all came, looking nervous. "You're all fired. Effective immediately." They gasped. Amanda dropped her bag. Priya started crying.
Please, Serena, don't do this. Jobs are hard to find. We have families. We were wrong. Please forgive us.
"I hope you all never find another job in your miserable lives." They kept begging, crawling after me, holding my leg. So I did something crazy. I pulled off my belt, and one by one I whipped them. They screamed and ran out of the room, holding their heads. The new staff were standing outside watching everything. I turned to them and smiled. Let that be a lesson. Always treat people with respect. You never know who will be your boss tomorrow. And just like that, the girl who was once the office joke became the one they would never forget. I later heard it was hard for them to find new jobs, because every time they applied somewhere, the company would call me, their former boss, for a reference. And I never hesitated to tell the truth about how evil those three were. Thanks to that, Priya ended up working at a gas station. Amanda was taking care of people's dogs while they were at work, and Melanie was flipping burgers. Subscribe, or you might end up like Amanda, flipping burgers and regretting your life choices.